Hello there, Norman with iSaveTractors.com. In this video, I'm going to take this stock steering spindle from a Ford LGT 145 and upgrade it to a new, bigger, heavy-duty 1-inch spindle right here. Check it out. Now, before we do anything, let's talk about the plan that I'm going to be using to build an upgraded spindle for our Ford LGT 145. Now, this is a front spindle for an open-sided Ford LGT tractor. These are the same spindles for all the Ford LGT 100, LGT 125, 145, and 165 tractors. Now, when we make this, there are some critical dimensions that we have to keep in mind. The first is, notice that the angle of this spindle right here is not 90 degrees. If we use a protractor, we can actually measure it, and it is 102 degrees. So we have to keep in mind that, and we have to maintain that same angle for our steering to be duplicated. Another critical dimension is the distance from this flat section of the spindle all the way to the top. This is a right-hand spindle. It's not as important on the right-hand spindle, but on the left-hand spindle where you have the tie rod coming in from the steering column, that's important. The length here is about 3 3/4 inches, and the distance from this flat spot to the center of the hole here is about 3 3/8 inches. Now, the parts we'll be using to make this is a 1-inch spindle stub for a trailer hub. Now, this is right here. It's a 1-inch spindle with a 1 1/4 inch seal surface right here. So when you slide your trailer hub on, the bearings is for this part, and the seal at the very end is for this part. We're also going to be using a piece of 3/4 inch cold steel round. This cold steel round is going to take the place of this piece right here. I'm going to be drilling a hole through this spindle and attaching this right through it. We're also going to need this steering bracket right here. This is where your tie rods connect to, and it helps turn both wheels at the same time. You could fabricate this. I think this is about 3/8 inch steel. You could, heat it up and bend a piece of steel and drill a hole and have it be that. But if you don't have that capability, you can actually just cut this right off. And I've already done that with another one. And this is what it'll look like. We're going to use this piece and weld it to our assembly here. So those are the parts we're going to be using today. Let me take you through the process. Enjoy.
All right, to start this project off, what I'm doing here is drilling a hole in the 1-inch spindle stub to accept our 3/4 inch piece of steel round. Now, I'm not drilling with a 3/4 inch drill bit. I'm starting with a very small drill bit, and then I'm going to work my way up to the 3/4 inch. So I think the size drill bit here is maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to move up to the next size up and continually moving progressively until I get to the 3/4 inch mark. Now, you'll also notice that the drill press table is at a tilt. It's actually tilted 12 degrees. That way I can reach my 102 degree angle to make the wheels line up perfectly on this tractor. Now here I am using a step drill bit and a hand drill to give this hole a little chamfer, and that's just to give a place for my weld to really sink in and make a good connection. Now it's time to move on to cutting the piece of steel round. I'm using a dry cut chop saw to cut this piece of 3/4 inch cold rolled round steel. Now I've chucked up that piece of steel round in my 9x20 bench lathe, and I'm just cleaning off all the surface rust, making the steel round very smooth and ready for welding. I'm using a cutting disc and an angle grinder to cut off the tie rod bracket off of the old steering spindles. I'm going to weld this into place into our new one, so all the geometry will be exactly the same.
So here's how I'm going to assemble the parts. I'm going to take the 3/4 inch round, that goes in there. The tie rod bracket goes right there. And then I'm going to weld all 3 of these into place, just like this.
Almost forgot, before I do the welding, I need to drill some holes in these pieces of steel to accept some of the other steering components on the tractor. Now, when I drill this hole, I begin drilling with a center drill, and then I use a slightly larger center drill, and then I use my final drill bit size. I do this to prevent any oblong holes or holes that aren't perfectly straight. If you just begin using a drill bit, you'll notice that the drill bit will walk on the round piece of material, and that's why I begin with a center drill. Center drills are short and fat, and they don't tend to walk. Now that we drilled this hole, let's check to see if it's perfectly straight. And as you see, these 2 pieces fit perfectly together, and that's what we're looking for. Now it's time to get to the welding part. Here I am just tack welding everything into place before I lay down my final beads. The welder I'm using is a 140 amp MIG welder, but I'm not welding with MIG, I'm welding with 35 thousandths flux cord wire. And to prevent all of the spatter and other kind of unsightly problems that come with flux core, I'm using an anti-spatter spray called Weld Clean. And you'll see by the time we get to the finished product how effective this is at preventing spatter from sticking to the part. Now I'm using a grinding disc on my angle grinder to grind the welds down flat so the tie rod bracket will fit nice and flush. Here is the finished product after painting. As you can see, it looks fantastic. I threw a coat of sail blue paint on there by Rust-Oleum. Let's put it on and see how it works. Here I am putting everything into place. I'm sliding it up through the axle, and then I'm going to connect that tie rod connection that's on top that you see there. And after I install it, I don't think I have it in this video, but I will be pumping that grease fitting full of grease so all the parts will have grease on it. Now this little steering part that I'm bolting in right now, I've actually tightened the steering by cutting a little cut mark in that, and then I sandwich it tight with a bolt and a nylon locking nut. And I tighten it really down. That's a good way to remove a lot of slop that forms in a lot of these old tractors. Here is the axle hub that I've just installed, tapping the dust cap back in. It looks like I'm hitting it much harder than I am. It looks like I'm welling on that. But that goes in nice and snug. Clean everything up, and we're almost ready to show you what it looks like at the end.
Here is the finished product. The wheels and the spindles came out great. For high quality aftermarket parts for your vintage small engines like the K321 that's on this Ford LGT 145, please visit our website, iSaveTractors.com. We carry the highest quality aftermarket parts for your vintage Kohler K Series, Magnum Series, KT Twin Series, as well as Tecumseh and Briggs & Stratton engines. My name is Norman. Thanks for watching.